African Americans have always faced violence and legislative opposition whenever they find any type of economic footing and cultural solidarity. From acts of terror to political betrayal, Black prosperity has always been attacked since day one of their emancipation. In this video, we will break down the story of hope and betrayal, progress and regression, humanity at its finest and its worst, the Reconstruction Era. If you like the content we're providing, please consider clicking the join button. All your support helps us continue to take deep dives into Black culture and history. It was at a time when America tried to rebuild itself from the ashes of a bitter war, a time when the ideals of freedom and equality were put to the ultimate test. This era, which stretched from 1865 to 1877, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the depths of human cruelty. It is a period that must be understood, for it holds the key to understanding the American psyche and the long, painful road to justice and equality. The Civil War ended in 1865, leaving behind a country in ruins, both physically and morally. The Southern landscape was devastated, its cities and farms reduced to rubble. The economy was shattered, the old social order upended. In the North, there was jubilation over the victory and the end of slavery, but also a deep anxiety about what came next. The assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in April 1865 added to the national turmoil. Lincoln, with his vision of a malice toward none and a charity for all, was gone, leaving the nation in the hands of Andrew Johnson, a man ill-equipped to navigate the treacherous waters of Reconstruction. Johnson, a Southern Democrat who had remained loyal to the Union, was a complex figure. He despised the planter aristocracy, but held deeply racist views. His approach to Reconstruction was lenient toward the South, aiming to restore the old order without addressing the rights of the newly freed African Americans. This leniency emboldened the former Confederates, who sought to reassert their dominance through a system of black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedoms of African Americans and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force. The leniency of Johnson's policies sparked outrage among Northern Republicans, especially the radical Republicans who believed in a more profound transformation of Southern society. They sought not only to punish the South for its rebellion, but to ensure that the newly freed African Americans enjoyed full civil and political rights. In 1866, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, which aimed to protect the rights of African Americans. Johnson vetoed the bill, but Congress overrode his veto, making a significant turning point. The radical Republicans regained control of Reconstruction, ushering in a period of more aggressive reforms. The Reconstruction Acts of 1867 divided the South into 5 military districts, each governed by a Union general. These acts required Southern states to draw new constitutions that guaranteed Black men the right to vote. The presence of federal troops was meant to protect these rights and oversee the transition to a more equitable society. In 1868, the 14th Amendment was ratified, granting citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States and guaranteeing equal protection under the law. This amendment was a direct response to the Black codes and aimed to enshrine the rights of African Americans in the Constitution. Make sure you hit that subscribe and share button. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Reconstruction era was the rise of African American political power. For the first time in American history, Black men held public office at all levels of government. They served as mayors, sheriffs, state legislators, and even congressmen and senators. In South Carolina, a majority Black state legislator was elected, reflecting the significant Black population and their newfound political power. Figures like Hiram Revels and Blanche K. Bruce became U.S. senators, representing Mississippi and challenging the deeply entrenched racism of American politics. These gains were met with fierce resistance from white Southerners, who could not accept the idea of Black men wielding power. Organizations like the Ku Klux Klan emerged, using violence and intimidation to suppress Black political participation and restore white supremacy. The Klan's terror campaigns were brutal, targeting not only Black voters, but also their white allies. While political power offered some measure of progress, the economic reality for most African Americans remained dire. The promise of 40 acres and a mule, a dream of land ownership and economic independence, remained unfulfilled. Instead, the majority of freedmen found themselves trapped in a system of sharecropping. Sharecropping was a compromise of sorts, but it was a deeply exploitative system. Landowners provided the land, tools, and seeds, while the sharecroppers provided the labor. At the end of the season, the crop was divided between them. In theory, it offered a chance for self-sufficiency, but in practice, it often resulted in debt and poverty. The sharecropping system was rife with abuses. Landowners manipulated accounts, ensuring that sharecroppers remained in perpetual debt. The economic bondage was a stark reminder that freedom was not yet complete, and the struggle for economic justice continued. In 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified, prohibiting states from denying the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This amendment aimed to protect the voting rights of African Americans, who had been under constant threat. Despite these constitutional protections, the implementation was fraught with challenges. White supremacists employed a variety of tactics to disenfranchise black voters, including literacy tests, poll taxes, and outright violence. The federal government, while initially committed to protecting these rights, gradually withdrew its support. The Compromise of 1877, which ended the contested presidential election of 1876, marked the end of Reconstruction. Federal troops were withdrawn from the South, leaving African Americans vulnerable to the resurgence of white supremacy. The promise of Reconstruction gave way to the harsh realities of Jim Crow, a system of racial segregation and disenfranchisement that will last for nearly a century. The Reconstruction Era was also a time of significant cultural and social change. Freedmen and women sought to build new lives in a society that had long denied them basic human rights. They established schools, churches, and community organizations, laying the foundation for future generations. Education was a particularly powerful tool. Freedmen's schools, often funded by Northern missionary societies and the Freedmen's Bureau, sprang up across the South. These schools provided basic literacy and vocational training, empowering African Americans to pursue opportunities previously closed to them. Churches became central to African American communities, serving not only as places of worship, but also as centers of social and political life. The Black church played a crucial role in fostering a sense of identity and solidarity, offering support and leadership in the face of ongoing oppression. Women, both Black and white, played crucial roles during Reconstruction, though their contributions are often overlooked. African American women, in particular, were at the forefront of community building and social change. They organized schools, established orphanages, and formed mutual aid societies to support those in need. Figures like Harriet Tubman continued their fight for justice, working tirelessly to aid freedmen and women. Black women also became politically active, advocating for their rights and the rights of their communities. They navigated a landscape of triple oppression, race, gender, and class. Yet, their resilience and leadership were pivotal in the progress made during this era. White women in the South faced their own set of challenges as they adjusted to the new social order. Some clung to the old ways, supporting the rise of white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan. Others, influenced by the ideals of the abolitionist movement, worked to aid the freedmen, though their efforts were often met with hostility from their communities. The Freedmen's Bureau, established in 1865, was a federal agency designed to assist freed slaves from the transition to freedom. It provided food, housing, medical aid, schooling, and legal assistance. The Bureau was instrumental in establishing schools and hospitals across the South, offering hope and resources to millions of newly freed individuals. However, the Bureau faced significant opposition and was chronically underfunded. Its efforts were hampered by the pervasive racism and hostility of Southern whites, who saw it as a threat to their dominance. Despite its limitations, the Freedmen's Bureau played a critical role in supporting African Americans during the early years of Reconstruction. The political landscape of Reconstruction was marked by intense social and rapid change. The radical Republicans pushed for sweeping reforms, while Southern Democrats sought to restore their pre-war social order. This political tug-of-war played out in state houses, Congress, and on the streets of Southern cities and towns. The impeachment of President Andrew Johnson in 1868 was a significant political event. Johnson's lenient policies toward the South and his frequent clashes with Congress led to his impeachment by the House of Representatives. Though he was acquitted by a single vote in the Senate, his presidency was severely weakened, paving the way for more radical Republican policies. The election of Ulysses S. Grant as president in 1868 brought a new leadership to the Reconstruction era. Grant, a war hero and staunch supporter of civil rights, worked to enforce Reconstruction policies and protect African Americans from violence. His administration, however, was marred by corruption scandals, undermining his effectiveness. Want good luck for the next 5 years? Share this video with 5 people. The rise of white supremacy during Reconstruction was a reaction to the social and political changes taking place. Groups like the Ku Klux Klan, the White League, and the Red Shirts used terror and violence to intimidate black voters and suppress African American political power. These groups were often supported by local authorities and enjoyed broad support among white Southerners. The federal government initially responded with force, passing the Enforcement Acts and the Ku Klux Klan Act to combat this violence. Federal troops were deployed to the South to protect African American voters and dismantle white supremacist organizations. However, as Northern support for Reconstruction waned, these efforts diminished and white supremacy regained its hold. The Compromise of 1877 marked the end of Reconstruction. The contested presidential election of 1876 between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden led to a political crisis. To resolve the impasse, a compromise was reached. Hayes would become president, and in return, federal troops would be withdrawn from the South. The withdrawal of federal troops left African Americans vulnerable to the reassertion of white supremacy. Southern states quickly enacted laws to disenfranchise black voters and enforce racial segregation. The gains of Reconstruction were rolled back, and the Jim Crow era began, institutionalizing racial discrimination for decades to come. The cultural impact of the Reconstruction era is profound. The struggles and achievements of African Americans during this period laid the foundation for future civil rights movements. The literature, music, and art of this era reflect the hopes, fears, and resilience of a people navigating a new and uncertain world. Spirituals and gospel music, rooted in the experiences of slavery and freedom, became powerful expressions of faith and resistance. Writers like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper and journalists like Ida B. Wells chronicled the challenges and triumphs of African Americans, their words resonating through the generations. The Black church emerged as a central institution in African American life, providing spiritual sustenance, community support, and leadership. It became a refuge and a rallying point, playing a critical role in the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. The legacy of Reconstruction casts a long shadow over American history. It was a period of significant progress and profound disappointment, a time when the nation came so close to realizing its ideals of freedom and equality, but ultimately fell short. The lessons of Reconstruction are both a warning and an inspiration. The era demonstrated the power of federal intervention to effect social change, but also the limits of that power in the face of entrenched resistance. It showed the importance of political will and the consequences of its absence. The failures of Reconstruction set the stage for the civil rights struggles of the 20th century, while its successes provided a foundation for future progress. The Reconstruction era is a reminder that the fight for justice is long and difficult, requiring vigilance and perseverance. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring hope for a better future. The story of Reconstruction is not just a chapter in American history, it is a continuing saga, a journey toward the fulfillment of the nation's highest ideals. The end of Reconstruction did not mean the end of the struggle for civil rights. African Americans continued to fight for their rights in the face of overwhelming odds. The seeds planted during Reconstruction would eventually bear fruit, as the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s took up the mantle of justice and equality. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Thurgood Marshall drew on the legacy of Reconstruction in their fight against Jim Crow. The legal battles waged by organizations like the NAACP built on the constitutional amendments of the Reconstruction era, challenging segregation and discrimination in the courts. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were victories that echoed the promises of Reconstruction, finally enshrining the rights that had been fought for a century earlier. The struggle continues today as America grapples with the legacies of its past and the challenges of its present. The Reconstruction era was a time of profound transformation and deep conflict. It was a period when America grappled with its identity and its future, a time when the ideals of freedom and equality were tested. The story of Reconstruction is a story of hope and betrayal, progress and regression, resilience and resistance. It is a story that must be remembered and understood, for it holds the keys to understanding the American journey. The lessons of Reconstruction remind us that the fight for justice is ongoing, and that the road to equality is long and arduous, but that progress is possible. It is a story that inspires us to continue the struggle, to believe in the possibility of a more just and equitable society. In the words of James Baldwin, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. The Reconstruction era challenges us to face our history, to confront the legacies of slavery and racism, and to work toward a future where the promises of freedom and equality are fully realized. The journey is far from over, but the spirit of Reconstruction, the spirit of hope and resilience, guides us forward. The legacy of the Reconstruction era is complex and contested, It was a time of significant progress and profound setbacks, a period when the nation grappled with the meaning of freedom and equality. The gains made during this era were real and lasting, but so were the losses. Reconstruction laid the groundwork for the civil rights movements of the 20th century. The constitutional amendments passed during this time, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, became the legal foundation for future struggles for equality. The Reconstruction Era showed that progress was possible, even in the face of formidable opposition. Yet, the failure to fully realize the promise of Reconstruction left deep scars. The retreat from the ideals of this period allowed the rise of Jim Crow and the entrenchment of racial segregation. The dream of a multiracial democracy was deferred, but it was not forgotten. The story of Reconstruction is a story of resilience and resistance, of a people who refused to be defined by the chains that had bound them. It is a story that continues to resonate, reminding us of the ongoing struggle for justice and the enduring hope for a better future. The Reconstruction Era is not just a political or economic story. It is a deeply humane one. It is about the men and women who, despite the odds, fought for their dignity and their rights. It is about the families who sought to reunite after the horrors of slavery, the children who attended school for the first time, and the communities that came together in the face of relentless adversity. Frederick Douglass, a towering figure of this era, captured the essence of the struggle when he said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." His words echo through the history of Reconstruction, a period marked by both immense struggle and significant progress. Stay tuned for our next video exploring the antebellum era.